everyone. Welcome to The Zest, the official podcast of Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Raineri, and today's guest is the CEO of Working Wardrobes, a nonprofit that offers career readiness services as well as professional clothing at no cost to their client. She was also one of Orange Coast Magazine's Kickass Women for 2024. Thank you so much for being here today, Bonni Pomush.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Chelsea. It's so fun to get to be a part of this.
Of course. I had the pleasure of getting to watch you on the panel for our luncheon last year. And I was just so captivated by everything you had to say. You're so fun to listen to and so inspiring. So I've been so excited to get to talk with you.
Oh my goodness. Gosh, I hope I live up to all of that.
You will, I promise. Well, to start at the beginning of your story, where did you grow up?
I grew up in the East Valley suburbs of Phoenix. I always say I'm from Phoenix, but I never lived a day of my life in Phoenix. I am from Mesa, Arizona, if you know it. And before I came to California, I was living in Chandler. And it was such a, I feel like it reminds me quite a bit of Costa Mesa, like a very, flat grid. You kind of have the established places and, your go-to taco shop.
Yeah.
Very similar, just no beach.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh, okay. Got it. So what did your parents do?
My parents were incredible humans. It's amazing when I think back on what all they overcame and did in their lives to arrive in Mesa, Arizona, and to find each other, in that area. They were both, they're both retired now, but government workers. My father had a whole career in law enforcement. He worked for the Sheriff's Department and the Mesa Police Department and the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Reservation and all sorts of different roles. But he, of course, developed specialties over the course of his career. And my mom, she took a really significant time away from her career to focus on raising me. And I always look back again, thinking to myself, wow, I don't know that I would be capable of making those kinds of sacrifices and investments. And I'm so beyond grateful that she and my dad did. My mom retired after being a judicial assistant for a superior court judge for many, many years. So our table conversations were probably different in our house than a lot of other people's houses.
Wow, that's amazing. Good for her. That sounds like a really great job.
She would give it so much more character and flavor. But one of the things that I love, I love hearing about people's career trajectories and how, just life is not a straight line, right? Mm-hmm. So I love their love story because my dad came back from the Vietnam War and he came back to Arizona instead of his hometown in Indiana. And at the time, my mom was working for the city manager of Phoenix. And it was such a small shop at that time that every new hire came through the city manager's office. And so my dad on his hiring process met my mom. And he, for many weeks and months, kept bringing friends in to apply for jobs. And my mom was like, who is this recruiter? But what he was really after, he got, which was her.
Oh, I love that story. That's so cute.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, what were you like as a kid?
I was mostly attached to my mother's leg. I was a very, very quiet, shy kid and very curious, always loved to learn and, discover, but was very scared and I don't know how else to say it, just shy, really, really, really shy. And my mom, I say that I was connected to her leg because as you asked me about my childhood, I go to smell and my smell of my childhood, I can smell my mom's leg. That's how much I was there.
So you mean actually literally connected?
Literally, Chelsea, literally connected. Yeah. She really recognized and honored that in me, but also knew that we live in an extrovert world and that it was going to be really important for her to teach her daughter how to manage in an extrovert world. And so she really, in a very loving way, many times would train and practice and coach me to, go up to Chelsea and you're going to say, hello, Miss Chelsea, happy, whatever, Valentine's
Oh.
Day. And then, then you can come back to my leg.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I remember, so when I was a kid, I still have social anxiety. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I had it as a kid. But I, for some reason, was super interested in being an actress, but I did an acting class. And I feel like that, because it was scary, like that really pushed me out of my comfort zone. And I feel like those skills that you learn as a kid about that really instill that as an adult to force yourself to be more extroverted. Yeah.
Right?
But like what your
and
mom
good
was
for
doing.
you. Well, you had like in a formal setting and training. I mean, I was like led by breadcrumbs.
Yeah, I remember they had like one where you had to practice lip syncing a song in front of all these people and like really get into it. It's just like very embarrassing looking back, but I'm glad I did it then. I can never do it now, but yeah. Well,
I have faith in you. I think you could.
Thank you.
I'm sure there's like a karaoke bar somewhere for you to practice that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, speaking of your love of learning, you attended Arizona State University and you majored in psychology, and you also received your master's degree in family resources and human development. So, what drew you to these majors?
I love that you asked me that question. Like you gave me credit for being really strategic about it.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't strategic?
Well, I guess there was a strategy, but the outcome is very different than where I was aiming. And I wouldn't say that was a misfire, but it was, again, not a straight line. When I was in high school, I thought, I don't even think I thought, I knew, like for sure, I'm going to be an attorney. Like this is the thing that I'm going to grow up to be. And when I arrived at college, I hated all of the classes that were prerequisites for law school. And so I totally just bagged that major and was like, okay, what is the thing that I can learn now that will help me forever? And I was also like very aware of the feedback loops I was getting, right? And the feedback loops I was getting was really about like being a good listener, being a good leader, being able to like really work with people. And so with that feedback loop and knowing that no matter what I did, there was going to be some working with people is how I arrived at psychology. The strategy there being that, like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, but at least this degree will be applicable in a lot of different settings. And so that was my undergrad. And near, I think actually it was actually the last semester. It was fall semester though of my senior year. I had one class that I had taken in systems theory. And this class was like a huge paradigm shift for me to really come to terms with the fact that all you got to do is change one part of a system and the whole dynamic changes, right? Physicists understand this, like, just one little speck of something and the whole thing is different now. So I really got almost intoxicated by this concept and like, what all can we do? Because the world is so big, but if all it takes is a little this and a little that, that was what drew me in. So the class was in this department, Family Resources and Human Development. And I thought, okay, actually, I have to go back to my mom for a second. Hold on. Hold that thought. So the amazing mom that I have, right? I shared with you a little bit about my parents' careers. And at this juncture, my mom says to me, listen, Bon, I will keep working as long as you want to continue your education and I will continue to pay for it. Chelsea, that is liquid gold. That is a gift that not all people are given. And I cherish this gift. So my mom said, like, I'm going to keep working. What are you going to do? Go to school as long as you want. So I had literally like a pass to go and get educated. So now back to my story. I'm going to learn more about this and see, again, I'm not sure what I'm going to do when I grow up, but I know it's going to have to do with people. And I know that this is something that's going to help me. So that is literally how I chose those degrees, was really by discovery. And I have no regrets about it. Everything that I learned is applicable and has helped me in a lot of different ways. Some, expected, some not. But yeah, it wasn't like that's where I'm headed. That's the thing I'm going to do. I was aiming here and like ended up over here.
Yeah. I love that though. And I love what you're talking about. Just like one aspect of something can shift everything. I feel like it's such an empowering viewpoint rather than like, well, I can't do anything, so why even try? I really like that.
Chelsea, it is such a core belief for me. And
Mhm.
it is such a driving force of working wardrobes where I get to be of service now that I think that this is one of those like true north moments where you know you're in the right place doing the right thing when you're this aligned. And we know when people have a situational crisis, it can be a constellation of things that happen. But that one shift, the one interaction we have, that one opportunity to say, I believe in you, I'm going to help you. It may not be to the degree that my mom gave to me, right? But
Mhm.
it is that I'm going to help you be a better version of you. Here's this little piece that's going to help change a trajectory and a whole system.
Yeah. God, I love that. Well, you ended up becoming a teacher for most of your career. So how did you get into this profession?
I I have not ever thought of myself as a teacher. Like that is such an identity career, right? Like
Yeah.
doctor. Like what do you
Mhm.
do versus what are you? And teachers are very much an identity career, right? Wow. So I feel very honored, humbled that you would even refer to me as such.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Um, I I think that around high school time, I really discovered that I loved. People would describe me as the Pied Piper, and I'm sharing that with you, like so you can kind of get a visual. If you can imagine that, like there are little people, and I'm having so much fun leading and energizing and motivating them and sharing with them. And if you could take that scene and take it on the road, right? I loved being a residential counselor where I got to spend months in program with people. That was I teaching them? Absolutely. Was I guiding them? Absolutely. But really, in that kind of a setting, you get to really work with a whole person and all of the
Yeah.
sort of developmental layers. And then I loved bringing that sort of supplementary education opportunity. Kids that are in like after school or Sunday school kinds of programs where
Uh-huh.
this is not core to their. This is not what's just required. This is extra. And so that means that they're not playing their video game. They're not having fun with their friends doing their thing. And so I loved the challenge of engaging people in those settings to be interested and curious and learn and to create community. And I think what I'm trying to tell you is what drew me to all of this is
Mhm.
essentially leadership. And I wouldn't have ever probably called it that or seen it like that in the moment. I
Yeah.
saw an ability I had to connect with people, an ability I had, and a love for engaging around learning and discovery together and to create a culture, an opportunity for all these individuals to come together from all their different life experiences and to create a little community that in a sort of utopian mindset, right? Like you get to create the world that you want to live in right here. Let's do that
Yeah.
together while we're here this summer or this hour. And so I think that that's what drew me is obviously people and being able to create experience together, but to do it from a place that is really value centered, right? Like that we're going to have a classroom that's filled with dignity and love. How are we going to show each other dignity and love today and all the days, and like creating those classroom rules and that sort of onset of the year and being able to set goals and then achieve them and track our progress along the way. I mean, it's all of those things
Wow.
that drew me to it.
Oh my God, you sound like the dream teacher. That's so incredible. I love that. Yeah, setting the intention like that. I love that. Um, well, tell me about this fortuitous trip to Hawaii that you took.
Well, at the time I was, sort of I was in my full time career mode, right? So at this
Mhm.
time in my life, I'm still in Arizona. I am living in Chandler, working in Tempe at a school district, and I am running all of the programs that are outside of the school day. So all of the entrepreneurial side of a school district. So think about like all those like classes you might take, like family Spanish or yoga or, T-ball, anything like
Mhm.
that. All the facility rentals, all the security, all the communications, like everything that was not the curriculum and the classroom. That's what I was
Okay.
doing. And I loved that job. And I was totally in workaholism. I was like literally like you could look up, addicted to work. Here's like everything Bonnie is doing. That's what I'm doing. And so I'm several years into this gig, and my parents my mom had just retired, and they were wanting to explore cruising and vacation by cruise.
Oh.
And what do you do when you have one child? Like you invite your child to come and vacation with you. Lucky me. So my
Yeah.
parents take me with them on this 2-week Hawaiian cruise. I have never, taking 2 weeks off was like blasphemous. And the team that I was working with, I think they were shocked that it was happening. They only believed it after it happened. 2 weeks, I'm gone. I'm really out of communication. This is a big deal. And of course, all of the things that you would expect happen, right? We have an amazing trip of seeing these beautiful sights and enjoying all of the amenities. But one of the things that we did not expect was, there's sort of, again, congregating areas that happen. And on the first day of the cruise, my dad, who is a Marine, somehow was in conversation with a group of ladies at one of the bars and had found out that they were coming back from a deployment to Kosovo, and they were all in the army, and that they were, enjoying this cruise and, just kind of reintegrating into civilian life. So
Mhm.
my dad buys them drinks, and we, I think I come on the scene, probably half an hour later. So they're all great friends. And within that group of people, I ended up meeting the love of my life. And so 18 years later, here we are still together. And she's actually my coming to California story as well, because that cruise was so fortuitous, because I fell deeply in love with an
Oh,
amazing human who is a native of Orange County. And one of the, we refer to this as our deal breaker conversation. We were both, older adults that had not been married before and had plenty of reasons to stay single. And so we had for about a week a deal breaker conversation, and it was all the questions about, what's going to make this not work. Let's just figure that out up front so that we're not tempting reality. And one of her deal breaker questions was, would you move to Orange County, because that's where I live and where I want to be? And that was
Yeah.
not a deal breaker for me at all. So that trip to Hawaii was, important for a lot of reasons, but one of which is I would not literally be here if it wasn't for that trip.
Right. And what happened once you got to Orange County?
Oh my gosh, Chelsea, again, I feel like if there's a theme coming from this conversation, it's like life is not a straight line.
Which is my
So,
favorite types of stories. They're just so
yeah,
I love them so much more. They're very inspirational.
yeah. Well, and it's real, right? Like
Yeah.
it's how things happen.
Mhm.
Well, so I was working at the school district as I described, and I loved my job. And also remember, I have two parents who had an entire career working for government agencies. So that was what was modeled for me. And I had a really hard time thinking of leaving my government job and
Yeah.
a pension and all the things that I
Oh,
knew in Maricopa County. Right, I had lived there my entire life. I could not go to the grocery store and not run into someone I knew. So I thought, what can I do when I come to Orange County that would make use of all of me? And I was really loving at the school district a couple of parts of my job that weren't even necessarily parts of my job that had incredible impacts on me. One was our superintendent had tapped me to facilitate the strategic planning process for the whole district,
oh,
and engaging with all of the residents of the community, the parents of students, the administrators, every part of all the teachers, like all these components of voices that needed to be heard and then synthesized in a way that we could chart a trajectory. And to do that I think about it like an accordion process, right? Like you go out and you listen, you come back, you put something together, you go back and you say, where are we at? Does this look like what you're thinking? That kind of a
Yeah.
process. It engaged so much of me that I loved it so much. I love facilitative leadership. I love, this sort of mapping a process, all of these pieces. So that was like one chunk. I was like, I want to do more of that. Then another thing that I loved about my job was I did a lot of trainings. And some of the trainings I was doing was like for elected governing board members on a statewide level. When there's a new state law that comes into effect, how do you operationalize it in your district? How do you know what you need to know? And then to the tactics of how to operationalize, right? So I was really loving doing that. I also I trained hundreds and hundreds of staff that worked in my department for, many of them in these tuition-based programs, and always, something on customer service, something on leading by example, like these pieces that, well, yes, they help you in a job, they help you be a better human and, show up as our best self. So I won't go on and on, but these are some of the pieces that I was like, I want to do more of that. And so I thought,
Yeah.
I'm going to come to California and I'm going to start a consultancy. And I'm going to, do these provide this sort of solution for lots of different entities. But I didn't know anybody.
Right.
So the first thing I had to do was establish myself and become a part of the community. For me, that meant going to my community of faith and literally offering to volunteer and just start to meet people. And I made what do? You tapping your network, right? So I tapped my network. Yeah. Who knows people in Orange County? This is where I'm going to be living. And a few people, said, oh, go to this place, go to this person, da, da, da. So I started reaching out to those folks. And I literally came in the door offering myself as, here's what kind of the things I just told you, like, here's what's in my tool chest. What can I help you do and become a part of the community by helping do? And I had one conversation and she said, before you leave, you got to talk to them. Before you leave, you got to talk to them. Well, it just had turned out that morning, it was like the Monday after winter break kind of morning. Someone had come back from their, winter, probably, vacation or whatever with family in Seattle, and had come back and they had made a decision as a family they were going to move back home. And so she had given her 2-week notice that morning. And so the executive director says to me, well, I know this isn't what you're looking for, but this job just became available this morning. If you would like this job, you can have it. Here's what the job is. It's sitting at the front desk. It's greeting everyone when they get here. And it's providing members, information and, doing all of our sort of communications, internal and external communications. If again, I know it's not what you're looking for, but if you'd like it, it's yours. I was so blown away. That was not what I expected at all, at all. And of course, when I came home and talked to Patty about it, I now use this as a verb, she Simon Sinek'd me. She basically said to me, why did you go there this morning? So I said what I said to you, Chelsea, I went to lay roots to meet my community, to start to build relationships. And she said, I think that they offered to pay you to do what you were going to do for free.
Right.
And I was like, oh, she is so right. So I took that job, Chelsea, and I ended up 12 years later leaving that community and working for them. But I held a lot of different positions while I was there. The last 6 years as their executive director. And wow. I tell you that whole story because I think I ended up doing what I set out to do, but I just didn't do it in an entrepreneurial solo practice way. I actually ended up kind of back to my parents going with the employer route, right? Probably a little bit of a more conservative, safer bet, but able to share more of myself.
Right. So you were there for 12 years?
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then, that brings us to Working Wardrobes. But before we get into your position there, can you kind of give a backstory of how this nonprofit got started?
Oh, I would love to, because I think that this really, it's such great evidence of what we were talking about with systems theory. So in 1990, Jerry Rosen, our founder, had, I refer to it as a calling meaning that I don't think she could not answer this call. It was like in her being that she wanted to do something for women who had experienced domestic violence. And
Mhm.
specifically, what she envisioned was a day of self esteem, a day for women who were living in shelters to be doted on and beautified and to have sort of a before and after kind of moment, right? Like to come
Oh,
in one way, but to come out feeling renewed, refreshed, more confident, and like you were capable of the next big thing. And so, what do you do like when you have a big idea like that, right? You start calling your friends and getting the troops rallied around who's getting the purses, who's getting the makeup, who's getting the hairstylist, who's getting the clothes. And pretty soon, she and literally a handful of her friends gathered 67 women from 6 different shelters, and they provided this day. They called it literally a day of self esteem. And that was the beginning of Working Wardrobes.
wow.
Very quickly after, the focus on workforce development and the what's behind the look became the
Mhm.
focus, right? Because many of these women had a large gap in employment. They hadn't been in the marketplace, so to speak, for some time. And so this was the next like onion layer peel, right? Was like, okay, you look ready, you feel better. Now let's make sure that the operating system is updated and that you're able to promote your skills and assets in an interview, on a resume, in a job search. And then, bit by bit, we've continued over the years to add. So, actually, you now know more than most people in Orange County. Most people in Orange County think that we only help women and that we only provide clothes. And
Uh-huh.
that was true for a hot minute. But since then, we added services for men within the first 7 years, and then for youth, and for people impacted by justice involvement, and then for our military community, veterans, spouses, etc. But those beginnings are started with one person making a difference, answering a call, and knowing that that would create the opportunity for so many more ripple effects to take place, right? Because that one system change and that one person changes not just them, but of course their family, of course their neighborhood, of course our entire community.
Yeah. And so you took the position as the CEO, and it was you're the second ever CEO of Working Wardrobes in
Hmm.
2022. And this was an
Hmm.
interesting time for the organization. So can you kind of share
Yeah.
what was going on at that point?
Totally. I mean, listen, I think back and I didn't live through it the way Jerry did.
Mhm.
So I can only imagine how much. So Jerry ran the organization for its first 31 years. That is incredible in and of itself to have founded it in 1990 and retired at the end of 2021. Thank
Yeah.
you. Like, thank you, Jerry.
Yeah.
We I'm trying to think of how to like short this, right? But in 2020, we obviously had the pandemic. Everyone
Mhm.
has this sort of before pandemic, after pandemic reference point. But
Mhm.
Working Wardrobes, 6 weeks prior to the pandemic, had a decimating fire.
Ay.
Working Wardrobes had a warehouse that had every garment, every item that had been donated, and it was co-located with what we call our Career Success Center, where we serve clients. So that means
Uh-huh.
every computer, every pen, every post-it, everything was lost in this
Oh
fire.
no.
Yeah. And when you think about, I guess when I think about 30 years in, this terrible thing happened. I think Jerry at the time is like in her 70s. I don't know that I would have the fortitude to say, let's rebuild it. Let's
Yeah.
go. Let's do this again. And of course didn't have the crystal ball of what was going to happen in 6 weeks. But here's the thing
Right.
that's really phenomenal to me. At that time, I don't really think that Jerry had much of a choice other than to press forward, move, get Working Wardrobes back together because of the community's reaction to this fire, to this tragedy. People came out of the woodwork to rebuild Working Wardrobes. People
Oh.
here in Orange County know what kind of service we provide to help people help themselves. And they have been a part of this from in so many aspects of their lives, whether it's donating clothes when they're finished with this outfit, or donating their time. Church groups, youth groups, all sorts of people are engaged in helping with the organization. And then we have all this business community that benefits from the employees that we have prepared and that they know are great clients to hire.
Mhm.
We have, just, and I could go on and on about this network, but this network of support that just rallied beyond measure to bring Working Wardrobes back was in and of itself an incredible amplification of what is possible when people literally own their ability to make a difference. So at that time, right, Jerry is now literally overwhelmed with these outpourings of support. Our friends at Goodwill offered us warehouse space, and the fire happened on Super Bowl Sunday. On Monday, we were open, accepting donations, and never stopped serving clients. In fact, I
Wow.
guess in that regard, we had a little bit of a heads up on the pandemic, right? Because we were
Mhm.
able to make that shift sooner. But over that time, right, Jerry and the community really rebuilt Working Wardrobes. And I think she was thinking about her retirement before that, but that was a big, okay, but first this.
Yeah.
And then in 2021 was able to then refocus on hiring her successor, and she and the board then embarked on that journey. And you know how that story ends.
Yeah. Well, what is your vision for Working Wardrobes, and what have you done so far to implement that?
The potential in each of us as individuals is one thing. I want you to think about that collective where since 1990 we've reached over 131,000 souls on their employment journeys.
Wow.
So when I think about what the vision of the future is, it is to be able to do more, to be able to help more people. And in order to do that, we've really been focusing on preparing Working Wardrobes to scale. So the beginning was all about modernizing the company. And, I think about it like a house remodel. If you've
Mhm.
ever done one of those, like there's a lot of fun stuff at the end, but there's a lot of not sexy, not fun stuff to do in the beginning, like, replacing the pipes and the electrical and the windows and the insulation, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of what we've been doing at Working Wardrobes. We've been modernizing the pipes and the windows and the things on the infrastructure. So in examples, we have, modernized our client interface and our database with clients. We've got an inventory system and point of sale systems and digital loyalty systems that didn't, they weren't there before. We've modernized all of our, that sort of integrated our systems for our database of people who are supporting us with our email marketing and all of these components that you don't get to see them on the outside, but you sure know what it's like when you do business
Mhm.
with a business that's operating well, right? So
Yeah.
that's really what we've been focusing on. And sort of our next phase is to optimize her. So to take all of these system enhancements and modernizations of the company and optimize them, which means we're going to get efficient, we're going to get effective, we're going to be able to take these systems that we have built out and get really lean and awesome at doing
Yeah.
our core processes so that we're then phase three able to grow.
Oh, how exciting. Well, how can our listeners get involved? And is there anything coming up in 2025 that you want to shout out?
Oh, thank you so much for asking.
Mhm.
2025 is a really, really special year for Working Wardrobes. It is our 35th anniversary this
Oh,
year. And so
wow.
yeah, so we're going to be celebrating all year. And part of the celebration, you are welcome to join us. We'll have our spring festival on March 22nd. It's a Saturday afternoon, and it will be right before the soccer game at Orange County's only soccer club. So that will be exciting at the Great Park, and we would love to have y'all there. And in September, September 20th, we will have
Mhm.
our annual gala to celebrate our 35th anniversary. And this is one of my favorite events because we always hear from our clients and are really inspired by the systems of change we are creating one person at a time. We're also going to reveal and launch a new brand, a new image of Working Wardrobes this year. So you will see updated looks. We're gonna start at our beginning and get a makeover as a brand.
Yeah. How
So
exciting.
I am really excited about this. I know that we are so familiar with working wardrobes and yet not. So really excited to bring a new face to her and to also, again, create more capacity for us to help more people.
How incredible. It sounds like an amazing year. Well, we are coming to the end of our time, but before I let you go, I have three final questions for you that we call the Thoughtful Three. So first, what is one habit or routine that you feel has helped you become successful in your career?
I'm going to sort of give you a twofold answer to this
Okay.
because the first part of it is habits. I am a huge lover of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And this
Mm.
is the foundation of everything is our habits, that our habits create our identity. Our habits create
Mm-hmm.
the way that we default mechanisms, right? So um, habits, I'll just say that about that. I have
Yeah.
created a lot of habits. And one of the habits or routines that I think has helped me be successful is a habit of reflection. On a quarterly basis, I do this company wide wherever I am. And that is, how did the decisions we made last quarter pan out? What did we learn last quarter? I love it when people make mistakes because I always want to know, I don't care about the mistake. What'd you learn? And then let's teach
Yeah.
everybody so that we can make a new mistake. So this sort of habit of reflection is a piece that has really helped I think my humanness, but certainly my career, right? To
Mhm.
not get too caught up in the autopilot and not sort of looking at the business, looking at my leadership, looking at my humanness. I mean, every day I don't think about, what I used to do this. I used to think, what boxes did I check? What did I get completed? That kind of stuff. But I let that
Mhm.
go. And now I focus on how did I show up? Am I proud of how I interacted with people? Am I good? Is my side of the street clean? Is the way I showed up with you? Am I good with that? And if I'm good with
Yeah.
that, that's always my evaluation and reflection tool. And so on a, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual basis, to really be, I don't want to say evaluative, but I think reflective, to see our imperfections and our amazingness, which I'm not so good at, um, and to really learn from it constantly. This is a one life shot we've got here, right? I'm not going to do it right every time, but I'm sure going to learn and
Yeah.
try and keep improving. That
God,
squiggly line goes up.
I love that perspective. And you sound like such an incredible leader. I love that. Well, what moments in your career have had the most significant impact on who you are today?
There are so many. I feel like that's like the accumulation of everything, isn't it? Like moments. It's
Yeah.
always this
Yeah.
and that. You know, I'll share one, but that's a really hard question, Chelsea.
I know. I'm sorry.
I think one moment that always sticks out first, though, is time. I had an incredible mentor, a boss that really invested in me.
Mm.
And I think that sort of impact that she made on me is, I guess, kind of going back to my answer prior, is she took the time to show up with me, to give me the air time, the thought time, the reflection and opportunity to hone my craft. And when a person mentors, invests, cares about you, and you enter the sacred space of being able to be vulnerable, to share your real thoughts, your real self, and to kind of craft and formulate like the next step, that that has had the most significant impact on me. And I couldn't even tell you what we talked about. I have no idea. But I know it was her investment and her caring and her giving me that mentorship that made the most impact.
Yeah, that's incredible. And then lastly, what was the best advice that you received when you were first starting out, maybe from her?
I can't say that this is from first starting out, but first starting out at Working Wardrobes, I received some incredible advice from our board chair. You know, coming in after a founder is one thing. Coming in after Jerry Rosen is an entirely other. I mean, she many people would describe Jerry as bigger than life. And
Oh,
oftentimes, as I was coming in, they would say something to the effect of like, "Wow, you got big shoes to fill." I mean,
oh
if
no.
I had a dime for every time I heard that. And of course, Jerry always has like a really funny quip, which would be something like, "But they're only size 6."
Cute.
I knew she's adorable. But one of the pieces of advice that I received during that time was from our board chair. And she basically said, wear your own shoes. Don't put on Jerry's shoes. Jerry needs to walk in her shoes, but wear your own shoes. Best advice. I mean, such an invitation can be a scary one, right? But to be ourselves, to know, and I think as leaders especially, to know that we are an accumulation of our being. The things we know, the things we've done, the perspectives we had, it's an accumulation of who we are. And if I wear my own shoes, if I am just me, there's only one me, and I'm not for everyone. But the things that I am here to help make happen or to inspire other people to make happen, that's I feel my duty, my responsibility is to be the best me I can be and to show up as her. So to wear my own shoes.
Ah, that's such great advice. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I had so much fun getting to talk with you. As always, so incredibly inspirational, so captivating. Thank you for doing this.
I mean, you gave me a tall order at the top of the hour here, Chelsea. So I'm glad to know that on reflection, we delivered.
Yes, you definitely delivered. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing all of the incredible work you do in 2025.
I hope I see you there.
Yes.